Okay. All right. Well, we'll go ahead and get started. I'm sure folks are still going to pop in. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to share my screen. We'll see if I can. I always forget the ordering on this, but we'll see how it goes. All right. So you all able to see this?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. So we're going to kind of share some updates tonight about what we've been working on through the organization. So we'll do a little bit of introductions, kind of who we are, where we've been, share some updates about different things going on with our organization, some new business happening here, and then some upcoming announcements and events. So it may not take the full hour. We'll see where we are and go from there. So just for kind of a welcome for the folks that are new, I know we have at least one person new on the call, which is great. My name is Dr. Amber Bismack. I am the executive director of our organization, and I started this with Diane Henry, who's on the call as well. Back, my goodness, Diane, I think it's been 6 years since we've been doing this, which is kind of wild. And we started this organization to really try and figure out what was causing all the flooding around our community. And so initially we were partnered with Thriving Earth Exchange, who put us in touch with different hydrologists, where we gathered a bunch of data from with Carrie and other folks on this call who've helped gather that data over the years. They were able to use that data along with some data collected by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to actually develop a model to try and figure out, are we having issues with the water coming in? Is it the outflow of the water? What might it be? And through that, they figured out that it was the outflow that really trying to keep the water moving is what's going to help us keep our water levels down so we don't flood as much. So that was the big first part of our work for the first really 5 years of us being a community organization. And now we're shifting into kind of the next sets, which we'll talk about today. So some updates. So this first one is a pretty exciting update. Some of you may have already heard, is that as you know, for a few years now, really since actually 2023, we've been working with supporting Hamburg Township, who works with the state of Michigan to try and submit applications to FEMA to get home elevation grants. And we are excited to share that in March this year, FEMA awarded the HMGP application, which is for a total of $1.4 million
Wow.
for our community alone to elevate 9 homes around Orr Lake, which is super exciting. Though for those residents, it's going to pay for 75% of the cost to raise each of their houses, and then their residents are paying the other 25%. So it's a huge achievement. There's been a few communities in
Neat.
Michigan that have received money, and we are lucky to be one of those. And then on May 19th, so recently, the Hamburg Township Board of Trustees voted to accept the award. So it is moving forward, which is super exciting. I don't have the press release yet from Hamburg Township, but that is forthcoming. So once I have that, I'll make sure to send that out to everyone. The other piece that's been part of this is we have a second grant that we've been applying to. It's called Swift Currents, also through FEMA, and that's to elevate 2 other homes around Orr Lake. It's kind of a different structure for those, but the same idea, the same elevation, and that one is still in the process. So we are working on that one. So the exciting thing for this, not only is it improving the safety for these homeowners, but really kind of all homeowners, because now the land is higher around those folks. It's also having that. It actually starts to improve property values in our community, which is super exciting. And for the broad Hamburg Township, it's a really neat opportunity because now it shows that Hamburg Township is able to receive and manage such large grants. $1.4 million is certainly nothing to squawk at. And so that actually can open up doors and opportunities for them for future grant funding, which is pretty exciting. And we were the forefront of actually developing all of that. So that's pretty awesome. I just want to pause for a second before I move into other updates. Did anyone have any comments or questions or thoughts about that? Because I know this is like coming now that these have been awarded. So I want to pause there.
Just congratulations. Thank you for all the work that you and everybody else have done. That's really incredible. So great job.
Thanks, Patrick. I appreciate that. It's a lot of work. Has just the
Yeah.
context for folks that were not part of it. I will just say there was well over 1,000 documents in just the
Mhm.
HMGP application alone, and probably close to almost 200 hours for each person involved. So it's been a lot, including a lot of work from the homeowners. So yeah, it was quite the achievement to get that. Did anyone have any other questions or thoughts or anything on that?
Just to echo that, that's a fantastic thing. I mean, it's to get that on the first one out of the chute is fantastic. So that's really nice. First one for the organization, first one for Hamburg Township, and for the organization. It's wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Peter, for saying that. I appreciate it. Agreed. All right. I will just give you all a heads up kind of with that since that one is moving forward. That does mean we all might hear some construction throughout the summer. I'm not sure when exactly things will start, so it may be possibly not until the fall, but that is going to be a thing around the lake. So just a heads up there. So then kind of the next step, thinking about where we go from here, is one of the things we've been wanting to do is kind of help our organization shift into more of that continued mitigation efforts, but more long-term mitigation, not just with the home elevation for certain properties, but also kind of mitigation for the whole lake. And so to do that, one of the things that we need to do is we need to become a 501c3, which we are in the process of becoming. And part of that work has involved working with our governing board and the advisory board, as well as a committee with some of the folks that here are part of it to actually help us in that conceptualizing of our organization, what that means moving forward. And so in doing so, we wanted to develop the purpose statements. And these are the draft purpose statements that we have. As you can see, there are around 4 different areas. This was after reaching out to the community broadly to identify what are the areas that folks want us to focus on moving forward as an organization. Flood mitigation certainly was the very first one. In particular, we're talking about developing, supporting, and promoting science-based flood mitigation and water level management for Ore Lake, Little Ore Lake, and the adjacent properties along the Huron River. Also, community flood management support, so providing that education collaboration across residents, Hamburg Township, Livingston County, and state and federal agencies around flood mitigation, which is something we have done consistently in the past anytime we do have flood events, but certainly we want to make that as part of our purpose and mission as to what we do moving forward. Also, there was interest in having us focus on wetland and environmental preservation. So knowing that, of course, wetlands serve as a huge benefit to holding water and helping mitigate flooding. That was an interest of folks around the community, around education and collaboration around wetland restoration and preservation. And then the last, thinking about how to kind of move forward and what we can do with all of this, that grant procurement and resource development. So really looking at how we can seek and seek, award, and administer grants through and other charitable contributions and public funding related to flood mitigation, environmental preservation efforts, and community education around all of these things. So these are the kind of 4 areas that folks have identified across our community that we want to focus on as we shift our organization to future endeavors, which is exciting. Any thoughts or comments on this? Okay. So with that, one of the things that we wanted to do is actually look at changing our organization name because we know that we have had a very long name and not super great when it comes to trying to get future funding and things like that. And so through lots of different surveys we put out, we have a final survey and the results have come in. People have voted on the new name of Huron Ore Flood Coalition. So that will be our new name moving forward, which is exciting. We have the data down below. You can see it was listed as not only the top choice, but also the chosen as the second choice option as well. So it was really more of an interest, pretty big interest across the folks around our community that replied to the surveys. The surveys, the main one, but then also others as well. What this is going to mean is that you're going to start to see changes in like the website, and the Facebook page. We'll be getting our logo changed, all of those things. So things will start to be shifting as we start making this transition into the new name as well. And then, of course, as we go to becoming that 501c3 status, that we'll be doing so under this new name. Thanks, Peter. I appreciate that. Easy to remember, much better than the other one, that's for sure. I agree. Huron Ore Flood Coalition. All right. So then kind of the last main things that I want to talk about, and like I said, this may be a shorter meeting tonight, is looking at the weed harvesting. So, and what that means. So again, like I had talked about at the beginning, one of our main focuses initially was to try and figure out what was going on with the flooding and what we can do to kind of mitigate it. And what we found from the modeling from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and the hydrologists is that weed harvesting is really the key to do that. And luckily, Hamburg Township has always done weed harvesting across our community, and they have agreed and still plan to do another harvest this year, so they will fund that. The weed harvesting that they do on the Huron River is actually downstream of the Hamburg Road Bridge. And then last year, we had actually put something together. Thank you, Kurt Richardson, on this call for coordinating that, where donations were gathered from folks across the lake for resident-funded weed harvesting to allow us to have two weed harvests last year, unlike we typical years where we'd only have one, which is great. And so, and that harvesting is different. So, like I said, the Hamburg Township weed harvesting happens downstream of the Hamburg Road Bridge. The resident-funded weed harvesting happens upstream of the Hamburg Road Bridge. And in particular, it goes from the Hamburg Road Bridge all the way up to the river bend, right where the hidden lake is. So if you're following the river upstream, you'll notice the river kind of takes almost like a 90-degree turn right up until there. And so it also means it does cut the weeds out in front of the Little Ore outlet as well. So in particular, that's really helpful for us because obviously that's right where all the water starts to flow out. It's incredibly low area in the river and or a flat area in the river. And so having those weeds cut as well as the weeds downstream of the bridge is really important. So that was really lovely last year to be able to have two harvests. Certainly at this point in time, the river and the lake are quite low, so we don't know what that's going to mean for this summer. But as we know from previous years, low in May and June does not necessarily mean we don't flood in July or August. So that doesn't necessarily mean that we don't have that potentially coming. So having options to still be able to do the weed harvesting is going to be important. And so thank you again to Kurt Richardson. He has been willing to lead and coordinate the resident funded weed harvesting another time this year. So you'll get an email about that coming through. Just a heads up about that harvesting, just to give you some context for the cost. It is around $10,000 to get 2 days of harvesting. Last year we raised over $5,000, I think it was, Kurt. You can clarify for that. And they did at least a full day, if not more than a full day of the wheat harvesting. Is that right, Kurt?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so you'll be getting an email soon with a link to actually donate for that. Kurt, there was some interest someone had mentioned to me about wanting to be able to give you cash or a check. Are you interested in that or do you want it all online?
Well, it is easier to process it if it's online, but we were able to take cash, check, donations last year as well. Just takes a little bit more processing, that's all.
Okay.
And
All right.
I hope to have the site up and running tomorrow. And so that link will be available to people. And I, sorry, I'm having a little trouble with the sound on my laptop here. And I am in contact with Mike Bauer of Huron Weed Control and trying to make sure that we have a spot in the calendar probably during the midpoint of July again.
Okay.
So
Great.
that's kind of where we are. So I think we're in a good position. The heavy ice cover and the cold winter this year so far has really helped with the weed coverage in the river, and the river is kind of scouring the weeds itself a little bit right now because the water's so low. But as we know, the river level can change within a week, so we'll be ready.
Yep. That's great. Thank you, Kurt, for that. I appreciate it. And yes, it can change very quickly. So it's good that we are at the point where we're able to be prepared for that versus trying to be reactionary, which I appreciate. Yeah, we're only a big rain away from high levels. That's true, Peter. All right. So then kind of with the weed harvesting, one of the things that I really wanted to bring up, and we can even have a discussion about this as well, is some of the challenges that we're facing. And the main challenge that we're facing with the weed harvesting is a launch site. Now, for many years, and we're talking over 15 years, the harvester has always been launched on an individual's property based on his kind approval for letting us use it. And that includes the harvesting that the Hamburg Township funds, as well as the resident-funded weed harvesting last year. The reason for that is because the only public launch on the Huron River is actually 9 miles downstream at Portage Lake. That's the DNR launch. That's too far for a harvester to launch there and go all that far, all the way upstream to where we are to do the harvesting up here, which unfortunately that's where it's most beneficial to actually do the harvesting to prevent flooding. So we're in this challenge at the moment that we actually don't have a launch site that we can use regularly beyond this kind man's willingness to let us use his property. So we are at this crossroads of needing to find really a long-term solution for a launch site to be able to launch a harvester moving forward whenever we can. Yeah, so Peter, you're asking about the launch by the bridge at Ore Lake. That has been a conversation in the past. There's been a lot of concerns about the launch itself and its feasibility there, but also partly the feasibility, partly the concerns that were brought up was also the angling of that launch. And so any truck or anything going in there would be blocking the road quite a bit and would create potential challenges for residents in that area. Um, and so that launch has been pretty much ruled out as an option because of those challenges and folks in that area not wanting to deal with those challenges when they're in the process of weed harvesting. All of that's to say, that does put us in a situation where, again, this year at the moment, we are okay because this man is still kind enough to let us launch this year, use his property to launch both the Hamburg Township for harvester for the weed harvesting and the resident harvester for the resident-funded weed harvesting. But we are in a position of needing really a more consistent long-term solution for this. So at that point, before we open up to conversations, Carrie, you and I had a conversation with a few other folks. I'm going to turn it over to you to share a little bit, and then I will stop sharing my screen for a moment. We can have a discussion.
Sure. Thank you, Amber. Again, we did some research last year. I did a lot of work with the county and the township looking at deeded access properties around the lake and the river. And one of the most important things for us for a long-term solution is let's find a launch ramp. As part of that research I did last year, we determined with the township and the county, Ore Lake Little Farms has deeded access to property lot number 116 on the riverside, which if you have access to the GIS website, you can go look at it. It's about 116 feet wide, and it's the first lot to the north of that little house that sits at the top of the riverside where it heads down the hill and goes toward the launch ramp. There's 4 open lots there. The one the furthest to the south is actually no deeded, no taxes paid, considered like a park, like the launch ramp is. We would have to work with the DNR and Eagle and everything else to get some approvals to do a launch ramp in there, but the property is big enough to physically develop that into a weed harvester site where a truck could get pulled off the road, not block emergency access, and be used as sort of a permanent site for weed harvesting. And we could also tell residents that would provide them with a really nice riverside launch ramp. So what I did the other day is I contacted a contractor, I had them come out, and they're doing some drawings for us right now to determine what the cost and timing would be to develop that site into a viable weed harvester launch site. And then obviously we'd have to go to the county and the township and say, what does it take to get the approvals to utilize that lot in that way? And since it's considered a residential site, we may have to have that changed. But again, I don't think these things are insurmountable, but that would be the long-term solution for us to utilize as a weed harvester launch site. It is big enough, it can be done. The contractor believes that it would not be too difficult to turn that into a launch site, nor would it be incredibly expensive. So I'm waiting to get those drawings back and that information, and I'll share it with the team.
And I'll just add on to, before wanting to give folks a chance to share their thoughts on this, is that nothing certainly would ever move forward without the agreement from the residents who have the deeded access to that property.
Right.
And there would be a lot of legal agreements that would come into play in this. So no one's going to start doing anything with a shovel or anything until all the legal I's are dotted and T's are crossed. So a lot would have to happen before any of that actually comes to fruition, but it is a possibility that was thrown out there.
Yes, and we would poll all the residents, let them know what we'd like to do and get their buy-in. Yes.
Mhm. So with that, I did want to stop here. Like I said, as you saw, I stopped sharing my screen and kind of open it up to hear people's thoughts, questions, concerns, ideas, all of those things around this situation that we're in, where we do not have a long-term solution for a launch for the harvester. Peter, you're asking about the launch, the canoe launch at here on Metro Park.
Sure, I've sort of noticed in the past year that I've seen cars go down there. Now, I don't know if you could, it's down a hill a bit, and that might be a short-term solution. I don't know if, we talk to them, or I'm not sure if they'd be up for it, but it seemed to me that that wasn't supposed to be that way, but I've seen people drive down there, and it doesn't seem to be a hindrance to drive down. I don't know. I'm usually going by in the canoe, so I've not been able to look up land to see what's really going on.
Yeah.
I think if I recall last year, Kurt said something about that site's not quite viable for doing weed harvester launches. I may be wrong, but
Yeah. Well, if the water's low, it might be tough to get back downriver.
exactly.
Too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and remember, and Kurt, you jump in too, but I just keep in mind too that it's not just launching the harvester, but it's also getting tons and tons and tons of weeds off the river, which are incredibly heavy with the weight of the weeds and water that comes out. So that's another piece too. Um, Kurt, did you
And
have thoughts on that one?
you need room to park trucks off the roadway so we don't block emergency vehicle exits. Yes.
Yep.
Short term is the kindly neighbor, maybe I missed it. Is he asking us to look for another option, or is he cool with us using the short term?
No,
Yeah,
we're just
that's
protecting the future.
that's a good question, Patrick. He has not said anything that he will say no in the future, or that has not really been alluded to. He's been letting the township do it for over 15 years. So, that has been he's an incredibly kind man. He deserves all of the cookies in the world. Um, but like all things, that's not really a long-term solution.
Yeah.
Uh,
I love how y'all are being proactive about it because you're right. It's not a good long-term solution. And I like Carrie, what you're looking into in that lot over
Yeah.
there. Maybe that'll pan out.
Yes, thank you.
do other people have thoughts or questions or ideas?
Hey, Amber, it's Paula. Sorry, I'm driving.
You're good. Be
Question.
safe.
Yeah, just in the construction. So if the development is done for the new launch pad at this property, if there's an investment in it, who owns it? Is it township or will the new 501c3? Just trying to figure out where the financing is coming and then who does it belong to at the end?
A great question.
Yes.
I'll let Carrie answer the ownership part, and then we can talk about the others. Go ahead, Carrie.
Well, again, right now it's deeded as residential property. We would have to ask the county or the township because usually lots functioning that way are considered parks as a loose term. So we would ask them, since there's currently no deeded taxes paid on it, and there hasn't been for years, could it continue to function that way? So all our 501c3 would be responsible for is construction and maintenance of that launch. But that's a question we have to ask. And if they would require somebody to own it, if you will, then we'd have to have that conversation on how we do that. And I don't have an answer yet. But that's a great question. Yeah.
Yeah, it just seems like, I mean, I think it's a great opportunity if they would actually deed it over to the nonprofit, then at least that investment in it would be owned, by the nonprofit down the line and all construction investment, whatever needed. So good options.
No, that's a great point, and it would also protect it because the only other option we could be is, and I've already talked to the neighbors, and Deanna's online here. We would resurrect some group of Ore Lake Little Farms homeowners association, which used to exist, and we could resurrect that and bin it under that if we had to. So there are some options here.
Awesome, thanks.
A great question, Paula.
But
Yeah.
it's nice that you guys are really thinking this out, and you probably thought about this before. But the one thing too is access too, because I know that's why I asked about the launch by the bridge. I know there's a lot of controversy of who can get in, who can get out. So I'm sure you've already thought about that as far as who has a key and this and that. So.
Yep.
It's a great question. And when I'm having the contractor do the layout work for it, basically it's going to have a very large gravel turnaround area, because if you want to launch a boat, as well as I do, you want room to pull in, turn around, back in. They have to do same kind of thing. So I don't know that we'd ever have a gate over it. We may, but I don't know that we'd want to. But it would get developed to the point where there's plenty of room to put the harvester in the water, to put the conveyor that offloads the harvester onto the dump truck. And all of that could happen on a 116-foot wide lot, all with no truck sitting on the street. So we would kind of fit the compliance of what people are asking for. So hopefully that will work out.
No, that's good. The one thing is that if you have something that's open all the time, then anybody and their brother can come down there. So that's the one thing people down there, jet skis and everything else, in, out, all around it. You have to think about that.
That's a good point. We run into this kind of problem with the current launch ramp at the culvert, where those groups of people lock that thing up, and then people have trouble getting their boats out, and it can get a little quirky. So we were thinking as a Riverside launch, and we haven't thought ahead this far. That's why that's a good question you're bringing up. Do we really need to have gates and lock it? I don't know. Or is the carrot that we hang people to help convince them that this is the right thing to do is you can go use this launch ramp anytime you want, as long as we can get the weed harvester when we're doing the work. So I'm not sure what the right answer is. Maybe we can all put our heads together and figure out what that is.
Yeah, I think I figured one of those things people have to think about. So, okay, good.
Yes. And Diane, yes, that's a good point. We need to understand the liability of that one.
Yep. I appreciate these questions, because these are all questions we're going to have to figure out, and obviously we'll be involving lawyers in this and everything to make sure that we have everything figured out. But again, we're at the idea stage to try and figure out what possibilities we have.
Is it even possible? Yeah.
Right, because again, our situation now is not a long-term one. Does anyone else have questions, thoughts, ideas about this?
I have a question. I don't know if I can talk. Let's see.
Okay, go for it.
I'm Linda Beaudry, and I think, isn't there just up around the bend behind the hidden lake, there's like a canoe launch that is on state land? Because I've actually gone and dropped people off there. Isn't that close enough that they could put the harvester in there? And there's a big, huge parking lot, because I know I pulled a trailer with canoes stacked on it and dropped people in canoes off, and I was able to do a circle without backing up with a trailer. So it was a nice spot, and it was really close by. It's not 9 miles away. It's upstream.
That's the launch at the Huron Meadows Metro Park that we were talking about, that Peter had brought up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it's that one. It is a launch, but it is also down a pretty big hill. And again, thinking about a really heavy truck and the harvester and everything, that one is deemed, from my understanding, from what I've heard from folks who've looked into this, not very great.
Okay.
No, it's a great question. But one of the concerns, one of the things we have to be careful of is this is extremely heavy equipment, and they can tear up a launch very quickly. So we have to be careful how we build these and how we use it, I guess.
Yep.
Sorry.
No,
Cool. Great question.
Anyone else?
The one thing that just sort of came to mind is that I think I know where you're talking about putting the launches. We'd have to be careful about erosion too, because a lot of water comes down that hill. So if we get all that way in, you have to sort of plan for that kind of stuff too.
Yeah.
Yep. Appreciate that.
Well, the layout drawings that we're doing is we actually would have to build a seawall, do some holdback walls and that thing, do some water management, control, and direction, and then build the launch ramp all the way down to the water's edge. So I'm going to let the contractor do all that drawing, and then we'll share it with everybody and get some input and see what y'all think.
Well, the biggest complaints that I've heard from the people down on Riverside is they do not want trucks at any time on that road because they might need, in an emergency, to use the road. And so they don't want any trucks there at all.
And that's
So,
why we would build the launch so the truck could be parked completely off the street. Yes.
yeah, if we can do that, I think that would satisfy a lot of the people down on Riverside.
Yeah. You're right, Deanna. And the good thing about that lot 116, it's 122 feet wide and 115 feet deep. It's more than big enough to put a harvester, a conveyor system that they use, and a dual axle dump truck on that property, and nothing sticking out on the street. So that's one of the reasons it would, if we could make it work, it's not a bad site to do.
Right.
I'd like to say something, you know, when you call EMS, and we have a lot of EMS and ambulances go down our street very frequently. I had to call this year myself. They send the fire truck and they send the ambulance, and, you know, they come very quickly and they don't slow down. So, you know, we're a dead end street, and, you know, we actually even wait for cars to come in and move over so we can get out. So it's a 1-lane bridge. And, you know, I mean, when the boats are going in, we wait. When, you know, there's people walking, you wait, you know, because it's a pedestrian. You know, if I see children or dogs or people, I just sit there and wait for them to go across the bridge. So it's narrow. You know, it's a real big safety thing. And, you know, I mean, we have people blazing down our street. It's just sort of scary. But, you know, and it's a lot of blind curves going around some of the homes here. And, you know, we've lost dogs, and our neighbor's dog got hit last year and he was standing next to the dog. So that was really scary. The dog didn't die, but, you know, the dog got hit. So, you know, we don't want people or, you know, not be able to get EMS in here. You know, unfortunately, it's a dead end street, and we all have to try to make it accessible as possible. But thank you.
I appreciate
No, that's
that.
a good point. That's why we wouldn't think about taking the equipment across that bridge into that area, because we're not sure that bridge would even support a fully loaded dump truck full of weeds. So lot 116 is like 6 lots south of that bridge on Riverside Drive. So we wouldn't be over that bridge or into that area at all.
I appreciate you mentioning that, Linda.
Yep.
All right, anyone else?
Well, all right. So last year, since I was involved in the upstream harvesting and launching of the harvester and the weeds, I don't really want to complicate this anymore, but it actually would be possible to separate the launching of the harvesters from a location standpoint to where we take away the weeds. So we actually could have 2 different sites if we had to. The other thing is, the best actual situation is that since we're harvesting north of the Hamburg Bridge now and south of the Hamburg Bridge, if we had a launch that was pretty close to the bridge on either side of it, that's probably the ideal situation, because then the harvesters don't have to travel so much upstream and downstream.
Agreed.
So I'm not sure we can accomplish all of these, but I'd really like to try to go for the lot 116. Is that what it is, Carrie?
Yes.
Even though, yeah, there's a lot of questions about the access and the legal stuff, it would be ideal.
Yeah, Kurt, we're just trying to find property we can use. That's where we're at. Let's show me a lot we can use, and then we can talk about developing
No,
it.
no, I agree. So,
You know,
um,
if there was more open lots around here, it'd be great, but there's not, you know.
yes, I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate these conversations and questions and thoughts around this. This is obviously will take a while. This is not a tomorrow or even the summer solution. We want to have something down the road that we can then consistently use. So we're trying. We'll see what happens. It's also not a guarantee. It's very possible this may not pan out. But I'm glad to hear all of your thoughts on it, your concerns about it, because we need to take all of that into consideration when considering the option, this potential option that we have. And at the moment, this is kind of the only option that I've heard. So,
Hey Amber, just got in late.
You're
Kind
good.
of picked up a little bit what you guys were talking about.
Yeah.
So for lots, I guess I'd be mindful as far as Eagle regulations when it pertains to any improvements to a lot on the water in regards to placement of additional material.
Yep.
So, I'm on a first name basis with the Eagle representative in our area that we're dealing with that situation for some
Perfect.
improvements that I did to my property, that I had to remediate. So, because I was in excess. So just proper permitting and conversations with them as far as approval and use. So just, I can forward those along if you like, or I'm sure you guys already got them, but.
No,
I appreciate that.
that's a good point. And Amber's point's right too. We have a whole lot of ground to cover here as far as legal, liability, getting Eagle and DNR to approve us adding gravel or whatever to the launch. May have to have some water dredged. There's a whole lot of things that have to happen before this site can be developed. We were just, at this point, I'm just trying to find, was there a piece of property that's not deeded to anybody that could be turned into and used this way? So that's, we're really at step one.
Mhm. I appreciate you mentioning that, Eric, though, that
Yeah.
hopefully, fingers crossed, we get to that point. We will reach out to you to be able to take those steps. But we have a
Yep.
while until then.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward, but they just need to be aware of what you're doing, and they understand that it's a give and take, but they still can. They have the full right to say no to anything. So
Yes.
that's the preparation. So
We would ask kindly.
yep, yep. And I wouldn't go with my route of asking for forgiveness. So
Good point.
All right. So with that, I wanted to just kind of, I'm going to share my screen again, just kind of showing a few last points to bring up. So a little bit of other reminders here. We are still looking for someone to volunteer to help with social media for our organization as we move forward, especially as we shift things and everything. And also, if we do end up with high water this summer, fingers crossed that we don't, but if we do, please make sure you're still recording on the iflood.org app as a way to gather that data to see when you have water on your property and what the river gauge is showing us, so we have more evidence of that. And then also there's some upcoming events. So there is a river cleanup this year to remove logs and debris and such in the river to continue helping with the outflow. Freedom River is actually kindly hosting and coordinating the event this year. So it's going to be on Saturday, July 25th, starting at 8 a.m., likely done around 1 p.m. The hope is to have both breakfast and lunch provided. I think they're going to try and have t-shirts for folks too. They are going to have an online sign up soon, so they know how many people are coming, can prepare for it. So this is a chance for folks to get out on the river. You don't have to have access to the river. That'll be coordinated in advance. But for folks to go out, to be on the river, help remove logs and all that debris from the river. So they coordinate all those things, and they're working with Hamburg Township and some other folks that live along the river. Some other few events going on through the Huron River Chain of Lakes Association, HR COLA. They have 3 events coming up. One is that same Saturday, July 25th at 9:30 in the morning. It is a tour of Baseline Farms, the Baseline Farm. There's another event on Friday, August 7th at 6 p.m. It's their annual pizza party at the American Legion Hall. Apparently they're playing the Watershed game with MSU educators. I'm not sure what that is, but that's pretty exciting, especially if you like pizza. And then the last event they have is Saturday, September 19th at 10 a.m. They're actually hosting a tour of the Hamburg Township wastewater treatment plant, which I know always sounds weird to go tour a poop plant, but I've done it before and it's actually quite fascinating to see how they clean water and what that means, especially considering how close it is to us.
Yeah.
And then last event, we have our next organization meeting coming up in August 22nd at 10 a.m. It's an in-person meeting. In the past, we've met at the library, though I think the library is having some renovations, so it might not be at the library, but we will let you know once we know soon where that meeting will be. But that'll be our next meeting in person. All right, and with that, I'll stop sharing. I'm happy to stay on if any folks want to continue chatting or have questions or anything. But with that, we can call it a night. I appreciate you all coming tonight. It's good to see everyone. And I'm sure I'll see many of you out on the water too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Amber?
Yeah.
I just want
Thank
to
you very
say
much.
thank you for putting this all together. You did an excellent job on getting us informed on a lot of things. Thank you.
You're very welcome, Deanna. I'm happy to.
Yes, none of this would happen without you.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of other
Absolutely.
people, but
And a lot of other people.
you're the spark. So thank you very much. Really appreciate all your work
Good point.
and everybody else too.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate that.
Yep. Thank you all.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thanks, everyone.